to winning isn't easy. So, Amy, I get this question all the time. Can I work while I'm getting SSI?
Yeah, you can. However, there are special rules for SSI to make it possible for you to work and receive your SSI payment. However, if you do, you first of all need to let SSA know at that special magic number or going in person. And there's some things that could happen though. If you're earning more money, your SSI could go down. So it's important to be aware of that. And sometimes when that happens for a certain period of time, you can lose your SSI. Yeah. And people don't realize that, because then I'll get calls after they do that after like a year and they go, I lost my SSI. What do I do now?
That's too late to ask.
Yeah, it's so disheartening and saddening. So it's so great to have this conversation and inform people and let them know. There's also a pamphlet that SSA put out, if anyone may be interested in checking it out, called Working While Disabled, How Can We Help? And it has information online, or you can call that magic number or get it at your local office. But if you ever have questions, call SSA first on something like that and discuss it with them. Be aware of what can happen, because sometimes it's too late once it's happened. You can't just reinstate it, reapply. And they really do look at how much you're making. So if that check is a certain amount and you depend on it for rent and other things, and if you're working, sometimes it can then go down. It's a balancing act. So it's important to be aware, get informed, and then feel comfortable and make those decisions. So you can work, but there's special rules.
Yeah, so that leads us to the obvious question, and that is, how often does SSA check your assets?
Yes, so they by law have to do a review of all the SSI cases and check to make sure that income asset resource information is up to date. They also look to see, are you getting the right amount of money? And there's no set time frame. So it's sort of random, I'll say it like that, but they do it. And again, this is for the non-medical portion.
Right.
If and when they do, which they will at some point, they will let the person know. You'll get a letter in the mail or something, and they'll probably contact you as well to ask some of those same types of questions on income asset resources. Maybe you're living with someone now and you weren't before. Maybe you were paying rent before and you aren't. And so they have certain things that are countable income and resources, and some things that aren't, for instance. And so with that, they'll take all those factors in, just like when you were approved the first time non-medically, and they'll see if what you're currently getting is correct or not. But they do, under law, review those SSI income asset and resources to see that asset test, and if you're getting a certain amount, if it's correct or not. So
what folks need to understand is, and we want to make sure that everybody's clear about this, is you can meet the disability test and be disabled for Social Security purposes. But if you don't or no longer meet the asset test, your disability doesn't matter. So you've got to meet both the disability test and the asset test.
Exactly, for SSI, definitely.
Right, for SSI. So what happens, Amy, if I inherit money or property? Because I see that a lot.
Yes, so if a person inherits property or money, it can be counted as income. And so if it does, there's certain ways to look at it, if a person accepts it or not, depending upon the value of it, the amount of money or property. And if it is counted as income, if it's then makes it over the $2,000 limit for an individual, then unfortunately that person could be ineligible for SSI and no longer receive benefits. There's some other things that go with it. It can get a little complicated about what people do with things, but overall, if a person has that happen, yes, it can be counted as income, or it could. And then if so, they might be ineligible. Also, if there is that type of change, it's important to report it to SSA. They have certain reporting requirements. So when a person is approved, including non-medically, they get a little brochure, and it says when they have to report things and what things they have to report. And if they don't report it and it's found out later, there also could be a penalty, unfortunately. So it's important to report those things too, as a side note. Mm-hmm.
So inheritances can be protected with things like special needs trusts.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if you know that someone is going to gift you money or give you a bequest money or property to you in a will,
Yes.
you and they should be talking to a wills and estate attorney about how they can set up various instruments, legal instruments, to protect that money or inheritance or property from being counted towards your asset limit for SSI. So there are ways that this can be done prospectively. Retroactively after the fact can be much more difficult, if not impossible.
Yeah, it's so wonderful that those things are in place, and the Florida statutes were allowed to have a special needs trust. And when done well and correctly, it allows, when those inheritance happen, or maybe they get a big amount of money or something for a car accident or other many things that can happen,
Right.
that they can still keep their SSI and they can spend that money, for instance, with the special needs trust for certain reasons, if you will. So yes, there are special things like special needs trust that, when done at the right time and correctly, it can be able to keep the SSI while having those things happen and protected in all ways. Mm-hmm, definitely.
And Amy is an estate's attorney, so she knows all about that. So my last question is, what can happen if Social Security finds out that you no longer meet the asset test, but you've collected Social Security? Is it all copacetic, or what happens?
So if you're collecting SSI and your countable resources exceed that asset limit, the $2,000 for an individual, $3,000 for a couple, unfortunately, you could potentially be suspended from the program and have to repay the money that's over that amount. There's some things, as I said before, that don't count as income or resources, so it needs to be looked at if it is one of those that's counted or not. And then one of the other concerns with that would maybe be if they haven't reported a change that they should have reported, that it could potentially be a penalty as well. I've really rarely seen that happen. However, it's important for people to know that they can, unfortunately, like we said, lose SSI for a lot of different reasons, like if they're over that asset limit, or if they inherit something. But there's some things that can, like a special needs trust, to be able to protect it. So always keep track of everything, inform SSA if there's any changes, review that booklet. Once approved, it's very thorough and important, and it tells about income, resources that are counted, not counted. But yes, sometimes you can be suspended from the program or even totally cut off. Sometimes it's just for a certain period of time. If things are over an amount, it's like 3 months, 6 months, different time frames. But yes, it can happen, and just try to be informed before things happen. A lot of times people don't know, and they go, I got suspended, or I had this happen. Well, unfortunately, you can't always just go back and fix it. But being informed and having the right information can help provide information and not have those things happen, and protect yourself and your family, and to be able to keep your SSI.
So as we lawyers like to say, ignorance is the law is no excuse. So when you get that booklet, what you need to know when you get SSI, that should be kept in a very safe location, and you should be consulting it if anything changes. If you get a job, if you are living someplace and now are moving, as you read this book, you will begin to understand that there are life circumstances that can change, that can have an adverse impact on your SSI. So just because you get SSI doesn't mean you're going to keep on getting SSI, doesn't mean they aren't going to check, and doesn't mean that they aren't going to ask you to repay any overpayment of SSI if you no longer meet the asset test.
Most certainly. And if a person, once they're approved and get that booklet, if the person is unable to read because they're in pain or illiterate or because any other health condition or otherwise, if there's someone that you trust and feel has your best interest at heart, have them read it with you and explain things so you're well informed and or make sure that they're informed. Sometimes people can have what's called a representative payee if they're not able to manage their funds for some reason, or a company. And so if that person also could be kept abreast of what things are needing to be informed from SSA. But the main thing is to know that SSI, especially on the non-medical basis with those asset limits, it's not a guarantee. So stay informed. Sometimes that booklet changes, so you can always look online for the most updated version. Sometimes they'll have the same version for years. Sometimes they'll change them. When Congress changes the laws, those booklets should change, and they generally do change, not always quickly, but they will. So you can always just do a search or go on ssa.gov and look for that booklet. But yeah, those are so important to be aware of those things, stay informed, and do what's best for you. Mm-hmm.
Well, great. We have covered a lot today, and I want to thank Amy for joining us. Before we close, are there any last thoughts you have, Amy?
Oh, I just thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It's so important to do what's right when people do what's right for them, and if they feel that they want to apply for SSI and or SSDI, to have the knowledge and information, hire an attorney if that's what they feel most comfortable with, and continue with the process, even though it can be a lengthy one. Get medical treatment and stay informed. And thank you again for allowing me to be here today.
Well, thanks. I hope everyone has enjoyed this week's episode of Winning Isn't Easy. If you've enjoyed the episode, please like our page, leave a review, and share it with your family and friends. And of course, subscribe to this podcast. Now, in next week's episode, we're going to talk about non-medical criteria and the 5-step sequential evaluation. It's really crucial that you understand the 5-step sequential evaluation. Just because your neighbor who doesn't look like they're disabled is collecting Social Security disability benefits doesn't mean that you're going to get your Social Security disability benefits. You've got to understand the non-medical criteria and the 5-step sequential evaluation. So we'll talk to you in next week's episode. Thanks.
Struggling with your Social Security disability case? The right attorney can make all the difference. Get our booklet, The Key to Hiring a Great Attorney for Your Social Security Disability Case. Discover how to find an experienced attorney who will fight for your rights and navigate the process with ease. Don't leave your future to chance. Request your free copy at caveylaw.com today and ensure you have the expert support you deserve.